So, Rafaela, thank you so much for taking the time today to have a chat.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. The
Rafaela,
time,
I've been
everything.
Rafaela, I've been following your work for quite some time now. I first read about your work when you joined the Intelligent Instrument Lab in Iceland,
Oh,
and that's and
three
yeah,
was like 3 years ago.
yeah. And then I saw the profile and I said, "Wow!" And from Brazil, and I thought it was so interesting, of how you're thinking outside the box of looking at your instrument and thinking, how can I innovate? So I want to start by going all the way back to the beginning. At which point were you in your relationship with the cello, which is your main instrument, did you think I need more solutions? I need more creative ideas? At what stage did that happen? And what was the first insight that led you to this journey with a Knurl?
Um, it's hard to like choose, let's say, one part of the story to say that was like the mark to start something new. I think there were a lot of moments in my trajectory as a student, as an artist, to really like consider, okay, I can think something, yeah, something different from that. From my background is contemporary composition, so from the beginning of my education, I was already encouraged to try new sounds all the time. So trying clips on a cello, trying to play the bow of the cello in a different place, like all these tiny details. It makes you like think, okay, let's do new sounds. But there was a certain moment in my, let's say, when I came to Europe. I studied in Brazil first, and then I came to Europe to do a second bachelor and master. And at the second bachelor, I started to wonder, like, okay, but why am I playing cello, and what does this instrument tell us about my story? Like, why am I like I love the sounds of a cello, but what is it inside of this thing that I love so much, and what is the connection with my human story? So. And I think the mark, if you would choose a mark in the history to say, oh, that was the moment where I started to wonder about making my own thing, is a workshop in my bachelor in sonology about improvisation. There was a boy, his name was Rafael actually, and he brought a open source 3D printed cello. And to improvise with the group, I was one of the other members, and I saw the thing, and I compared with my cello there, and I wondered like, what? I bring all this heavy stuff with me and in my case. Why? Okay, maybe I can do something similar. So then I joined him and another other two students, and we start to think about doing a string electric string quartet cello. No, electric quartet cello. And so everyone developed their own version, and I developed mine, and that was the first Knurl, let's say, the first version of the instrument.
In 2021, if my research is correct,
Mm-hmm.
you defended your master's in Den Haag, and with a thesis title, A Case Study of Instrument Design, Redefining Musicianship by New Music Practices, where you developed your instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And what really intrigues me is because the Knurl is the combination of so many different creative skills. You have creative programming, you have 3D product design, you have it's an instrument that is both interactive, acoustic, electric. How did you develop and how did you combine so many different skills into a single product or instrument?
Um, I think it's a bit of the challenge and the wonderness of our generations or this current generations, that we are encouraged to be very interdisciplinary, to think all these crossovers, and especially here in the Netherlands, I think our studies, people encouraging you to learn very different skills all the time. So yeah, I think it was yeah, it was let's say an influence of my time, definitely. um, and but in the end, music instrument requires a lot of different skills naturally, let's think in a cello again, like all the tiny details require thinking about engineering, mathematics, science, chemic, so biochemistry, yeah, all these kind of things. And yeah, it becomes one single thing, but it requires a lot of different knowledges.
The programming software that you work for the Knurl is one called Bella, correct? Could you,
Yeah, that's just kind of like the name of the computer, let's say,
okay,
microcontroller.
could you explain how did you develop your creative programming abilities, and what is the main rationale that you use behind for the instrument?
Um, well, I developed, and I still developing step by step, like thinking about all the elements I really would like to have in my music practice. The language I use is called Super Collider, which is a language in between C++ and something else. It's more like for musicians to adapt to the world of creative programming. It's quite well known, and throughout the years, I really like took time to learn the whole language, let's say, and adapt it to like what I wanted. And the language is able to, the system I created is able to track the sensors, to track the microphone, to track the potential meters that the instrument have. I'm able to connect wireless to a computer. I'm able to allow audiences to have like to manipulate the sounds of the instrument. I create all these tiny elements or features that made quite unique. But yeah, this all I think you asked me how did I create. I think the way I created, like, and how I created is through like the methodology of testing cycles. Like, this is a concept that very often is used on the design area or in the design sector. And that means that you work in cycles. You are developing a product. I think maybe you know that more than me, Francisco. I don't know if did you ever heard about this concept?
No, not exactly, no.
No. Okay, well, it's a concept that is about like imagining like a cycle. So you have a concept, and then you produce, and then you create, you bring to a public, and you get the feedback of the public, and then you start again the cycle. So it's a iterational process, and that's how I work with Knurl. I write down everything I want from like the last concert feedbacks, what went wrong, what was nice, and then I go home and I start to work in the new design, and then later on I have another concert, and the cycle is always going on. There is always another cycle to come.
Speaking of programming and interaction, what fascinates me as well about the Knurl is the level of complexity. So you've inserted so many elements in the Knurl that it enables a lot of creative possibilities, right? It's from programming to creating loops of the way that you touch the strings will have a different effect. The way that you develop the bow, where you can set the place where you want to do the recording for the loops, or forward and backwards with volumes, that it actually makes me wonder, given that it has so many possibilities, do you feel in full control of the instrument, or are there moments where you're improvising, because improvisation is a key part of your presentations, that you're even surprised by the instrument that you have developed, and that it brings unexpected possibilities that you think, wow, it's part of the instrument, I actually had not considered it yet. Do you feel in full control of it?
Not really. I think there's still let's say there is the half of the creator. Half of the creator is usually very she's very futuristic. When I use this hat, the creator, I design a lot of different elements, and I think the moment of practice and really learning it takes more time than we think. So, for example, there is a feature on my instrument called plan. That means when I touch the string, or one of the strings that are mapped with, like I have a bunch of sounds, let's say, and every string can trigger a sound. The strings, they work as buttons in my instrument. And if I have the, let's say, the like the modus of my instrument where I plan the sounds, so when I touch a string, I'm actually not playing, but I'm planning, then I can create a whole new scene, a music scene. This is one of the examples I'm giving, like to get into the level where your memory remembers what have you triggered before the moment that you want to create in the future. It takes a lot of practice. So there are a lot of moments where I see myself that half of the performer cannot cope with the half of the creator. And I think that's something normal, because yeah, humans require more time to really, like, how do you say, like, to really have
Absorb.
in their body, yeah, to absorb the information. So yeah, I think it's something natural. And yeah, definitely, in summarizing my answer, I feel I'm not in the control, and actually that's actually really good in music. To be not in control, it's the wonder of improvisation. And that's why you study music and you develop skills, because you need to learn to deal with your errors, in the performance. If something happens that you don't like, that's fine, and you need to learn to use that in your power, let's say.
Speaking of not being in control and interactivity and programming, you're also part of the Netherlands Coding Live, and or at least you've done a series of presentations. Some of them with Timo Hoogland, right?
Yeah.
A drummer. Could you speak a little bit about that experience and how is it like performing live to code which is being generated at the spot? How is that experience for you?
When I started to learn creative programming, for me, it was already like a mind change. For me, it was like, what? Am I able to make music without music scores? And so, live creative coding for me, it's a very important practice nowadays. And it has been for since the development of the instrument, but even further, since 7 years ago or something, 8. Um, and that, yeah, indeed, I am part of this group of the Netherlands called the Netherlands Coding Live, and I've been working with other creative makers, collaborating around other projects in the Netherlands, but also improvising sometimes. We often meet regularly. Maybe I can also say what's the Netherlands Coding Live. It's a collective of people in the Netherlands that are very used to use code to make their projects, and that's not only in art but also in science. Recently there was a circus guy doing a robot project there. So there is a lot of different people and interests in this group. Um Often these people meet to make algorithms. Algorithms are a very underground music practice that not so many people used to hear nowadays, although it has been, around, let's say, for about 20 years, like this sort of events, they happen. Algorithms are like algorithmical raves, let's say. So people go to dance clubs and they actually are not going to listen to DJ, but they're going to see someone typing. And they are typing algorithms that are shown in a screen. And these algorithms are generating patterns, sound patterns that you can dance. And it's quite futuristic. It's very unique because you see people in this event that are dancing and some people that are just watching. You can choose. You don't need to be the nerd, but if you want to be the nerd in a dance club, that's also fine. And that's what I find unique about this community, like that is very open to, for all this sort of introspective modes, extroverted modes. But maybe summarizing my experience that with them, I think, yeah, I like to be around projects like this. I feel really inspired to see how far our thoughts on technology can go, but not in a way that, yeah, we are, how can I say that? These projects are very personal. Everyone has their very personal touch and interest. So they create, people create their own languages, they create their own machines with coding, and it goes so far that and sometimes so out of the social context. It's beautiful to realize there are individual narratives, and we need to give room for that as well.
Last year, you had your first major solo tour, right? So you played in several cities around the world, several cities in Brazil, including my hometown, Recife.
Mhm.
You were in Asia, you were in other European countries, and you played to what I believe was a very heterogeneous audience. And you played in sophisticated venues, but in other places that were not very sophisticated, on the classical sense of music. Let's put it that way. How do you see the reception of people and the response of people towards the idea that you're bringing of innovating the instrument and proposing completely new forms of sounds?
um I Yeah, there is, let's say, definitely a general interest about my instrument. It happens very often that I play at concerts, I talk in a lecture, I give a workshop, and in the end, there's a bunch of people around asking me stuff, wanting to try the instrument. I always need to prepare for extra time because, yeah, people really like to touch the instrument and try, and I love that. So yes, I think there are certain levels of interest in this project that makes really unique. So let's say in a very superficial level, general audiences are interested to see new things. They're interested to hear new sounds. They are interested to be engaged with music through the problems that they are living. Let's say climate change, interaction, social isolation, all the themes that we live nowadays. But this project also have a very deeper levels. How do you say? There are other, yeah, deeper levels, let's say. So if you are a composer, a musician, or someone that loves music, you can understand there are a lot of music layers going on there, and there is a very meaningful concept of owning your own sounds, your own instrument, and creating a new practice. So yeah, that's what makes this project very unique. It has like a very singular a product, a singular, let's say, identity, but it has a lot of different, how do you say, consequence, a lot of different areas that it touches, and a lot of different interests from people. Yeah, that's what I see that works really well. And maybe I can tell also a bit of my current challenges about it, because it is true that what you say, that people, there is a very natural interest through different levels of audience: young people, elderly, adults, women, men, technologists, not nerds, very love nerds. But what I see very often, that is one of the critics of the public, is that why is this necessary? Why do we need to go so far with technology? Can we not just have a cello? That's a critic I get very often, and I reflect a lot about it, because do I need that to create music? And in fact, I always answer them, no, you don't need that. You can create music with a stick, but that's not the point. The point is, I think, when we go further with developing our own solutions, we always go further. Let's say we always reflect about our own identity and our own boundaries. And that's why I think people in the end, they really they really find this project very unique, because yeah, I'm not trying to sell this instrument, I'm just trying to reflect about my boundaries, let's say, as an artist.
And this is super interesting because it makes me reflect about the 60s and 70s when synthesizers were first being implemented. I don't know if you ever had the curiosity to read of what was said at the time, but it was not positive reviews, let's put it this way, where
Really?
people would claim, yeah, that that was not authentic music, or that was not, real music comes through real instruments and not through technology. And fast forward, I don't know, 40 years, 50 years, it's almost impossible for you to find a recording studio without a synthesizer, right? Because intentionality, I mean, instruments, regardless if they are more advanced or less advanced, they're just a means through which humans can communicate their intentionality, isn't it? And this is so do you find that the response from people, for example, in the classical world, so the professional music classical musicians, do you find that they respond differently to the innovation that you're bringing?
Yes. Often musicians are, yeah, more critical about what we do, but that's natural because, yeah, we are working in this area. I think, but in the end, I think, yeah, both publics are really curious about what am I bringing and the reason of using this instrument. Definitely.
I know it's not exactly a key part of your work, but how do you see the revolution of AI in music and the innovations that they are bringing? Is it something that you also consider perhaps adopting in the future?
Yeah, well, naturally we all adapt to technologies, right? So we intuitively we start to use ChatGPT or other tools. That's no, yeah. There is no point on discussing, like, why not trying, right? Um, I think what I see often is that we confuse like, how do you say, like, trends with with what is really necessary. And but that's up to all of us personally to ask, like, okay, what is this tool, what this tool can bring to me, you know? And I find myself a bit distant sometimes from AI, because I see that most of the time people treat it as a trend instead of a tool. And that's my only skeptical thing about it. For the rest, I I found nowadays, I was watching recently a video on Instagram that was really interesting, comparing AI and music and stuff. And there was a guy, he said, like, let's compare music with water. And he said, look, music is fluid, you know, like, it can have different shapes and stuff. But there was a certain moment in music history that we decide to freeze this music, and that's what we call, let's say, a single, right? Like, or like, that's what we listen in our houses, in the radio, in the car. That's a part of music, water that is frozen. So he brings, he shows like an ice cube, and he said, but that's still water, but it's frozen and it's in a different format. But it's not the same as the liquid, you know. So people forget that they sometimes they say they love music, but they never watch music concerts anymore. And then after that, he also compared this ice cube with a plastic ice cube, and he said, and now this is AI. And that still, it looks like music, it looks like water, but it's not. It has a shape and everything, it can work as music, but people cannot forget, we still need to watch and listen music live. And I found this story, the way that he compared, really beautiful, you know. Because yeah, in the end, AI is amazing, it can be an amazing tool for musicians, for artists, for designers, for everyone. But in the end, we need to remember that we live a physical world, and we still need to take time to listen physical music. How do you say live music?
Absolutely. Rafaela, we're coming more or less towards the end. And before I ask you some quick fire questions, I want to touch on something which I think is important as well in your work, which is there's also a strong social aspect to your work. And you touch on topics like decolonization,
Mhm.
social impact of music in communities. And that's very clear, I think, in your work, Tropicus, and a more recent one. I hope I'm not saying it incorrectly, but I think it's called Cidades Habitáveis,
Yeah.
right? Where does this concern come from, and what are the most pressing topics from a social perspective that intrigues you?
Um, you mean that what is my interest through social projects, let's say?
Yes. What about these social topics that most triggers
Hmm.
your curiosity, your interest? Because I think it's really fascinating that within this entire tech innovation, you bring a social element, which is something which not frequently we see, and I find it super fascinating.
Yeah, and honestly, when I see that as well, I get really a lot of how do you say? I also admire when I see people talking about technology with that, and maybe that's why I also bring that in my practice. Maybe I mentioned a bit in a previous question, but my interest or my approach in developing my own technologies is to really like reflect about my boundaries and to really like overcome the challenges of my time, let's say, as a person but also as an artist. So this approach brings me, of course, in connection with my context. And for me as a musician, that is so important because if I am alone doing music at home, it wouldn't make sense to make music, you know. Nobody, there wouldn't be nobody to listen. And we musicians, we deal with that a lot. Like we go like we deal with isolation. We deal with, we need space, you know, to really work out our own things and to travel around the world or whatever. Isolation is a reality for most musicians, especially independent musicians. So I think to really ingrain your practice around a culture, a community, it's just really important to make your music grow. You will find listeners, and you find also a reason to keep doing music. So that's why I think I'm really connected to engage with my or practice technology in a social ambiental context, let's say.
And I think that's great because in your presentation, it's not it doesn't become simply something of a wow effect of your instrument of what it can do, but also making people reflect on other topics, right? In the broader sense in society, and I think that's really interesting, and I'm very glad that you do this.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, we're
especially like in the context of Brazil, you know, like to encourage people to make their own designs. It's really important. I think we are not that
absolutely.
encouraged to think we can do things, you know, that we are smart enough and that yeah, we can create solutions for our local problems, let's say.
Very, very well said. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. So I'd like to go over a few quick fire questions, so to say.
Sure.
The first one is what is next for the Knurl? What are areas within the instrument that you would like to
Oh,
expand? Where do you want to take this project?
well, for me, that's not a short answer. Well, try to make short. Yeah, so I'm building a new version now, and with this new version, I am improving a lot of small nerdy things. And the reason why I want to do a new version and the goals why I want to keep going, it's very connected to what we talked about, to reflect about technologies, to really engage with different interdisciplinary formats of art, So that's probably what's gonna be the future of Knurl. I'm trying to also give to other musicians to try, to experiment, to give opportunities for people that are not related to different technologies to try to experiment. So yeah, I wish to do more music tours in Brazil, work with more underdeveloped institutions in Brazil that doesn't maybe have that much financial support, to yeah, organize something like this, or to have something like this around. I would love to make more music releases with the instrument and with my productions. I really love to make performances. So hopefully we'll be seeing new productions coming up. So yeah, I think that's quite enough. But there's more answers. But that's let's just stop here.
Sounds very exciting. You mentioned before about the resistance of some people towards the instrument, right? In saying, why do we need a new cello, for example? And a very similar concern is raised by people that are afraid of the revolution that AI is bringing. What is your message to the audience or music professionals that are concerned or skeptical about the development of AI in music or technology innovation in music like you bring?
um, don't be afraid. And there will be jobs for everyone. It's just a tool in the end, and we will need to learn to use that or not use that in a certain sense. I think in the end, if you want to just, let's say, be the most classical artist, just drawing and making, like spending weeks just refining your art without any technology, without any AI, that's completely fine. There is, I believe myself, there is always a listener for every person. So just don't worry so much about it. And if the people that are really interested, just dive deep, just go as deep as you can. And but I always remember, this is only a tool, and you can the wonder will happen with you. So you need to really take more time to develop your concept and think about what you want with it.
In times of so much technology, innovation, and AI, what makes human creativity unique?
Ooh, that's very deep. Wait a second. I like it, like Fernanda Montenegro. I need to consult my analyst. What makes human creativity very deep,
Unique.
unique in times of AI?
And so much technology innovation. What makes human creativity unique?
I think all these like different levels of knowledge. Because let's say, for example, in a project involving AI, you can go as a public. Let's say if you are watching a concert or an exhibition, you can really go deep on the process of the creative programming, but also the emotional part of it. Like what is AI? What is the role of AI there in this emotional construction of a story, of an ethical problem? So I think that's what is so unique, that nowadays, also maybe with globalization, we have so many crossovers of knowledge. And the knowledge is so big, we have so much information nowadays. And yeah, that's what I think it makes very unique nowadays to really experience art.
And to finish up, can you name three artists that have most influenced you? They don't have to be necessarily related with technology innovation. Maybe yes, maybe not. But who are the three main artists that have most influenced you?
Um, yeah, so for sure, no, there is not so much about technology on these artists. It's just my inspiration, let's say. I think Milton Nascimento, you probably know him, because of his voice, because what his lyrics, what he means to Brazil. And
He just has
like,
like an such a unique energy, doesn't he? He's like an entity almost. So
yeah, he's definitely an icon, entity. Yeah, it's just there was one interview of him saying like, um, I never wanted to sing because all the men that were singing, they were not singing from their heart. But then there was a moment in my life that I started to hear women singing something like this. I might be quoting completely wrong, but then he said, I discovered that I could sing from the bottom of my heart. I always love this statement of him. So nice. But yeah, so he's one of them. I think through my trajectory of cello, of course, Yo-Yo Ma, and he's a very great performer. But I'm not interested on the virtuosic parts of this, like a wonderful cellist like Yo-Yo Ma. I am more interested, inspired to see his approach to music. So Yo-Yo Ma, throughout his career, he made a lot of different projects where he went to Africa and he was playing with indigenous tribes there, and I find this so unique. Again, cello is a technology, and he found a way to find crossovers with other cultures throughout music technologies. I'm really inspired by his story, let's say. And yeah, it's hard to point three because there is so many more. But I think oh my god, so hard. There's a lot of different people, but let's make it more diverse. I think someone related more with electronics, creative programming. I think maybe Bjork could be a nice third. I also her approach to music, her lyrics, her story, and it's inspired me, and her culture as well, so different in Brazil, and really nice to see how her music became so big, so meaningful for her culture.
Rafaela, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for listening and giving me space. And thank you for listening. That's the listener of the future. I don't know who.